Welcome back. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Friday won the historic UK general elections as his Conservative Party crossed the 326 mark. They're at 365 now. They've got a landslide win in the UK Parliament, marking a victory for the Get Brexit Done message and setting the UK on course to leave the European Union in 2020. Here's what Boris Johnson said in his victory speech, and then we analyse the results. One of the biggest takeaways for India and the Indian community is the victory of at least 18 MPs last we checked, Indian origin MPs in this election. And we've seen, there were some motivated groups trying to spread an anti-India sentiment. There were some protests outside the Indian embassy and in the Indian the High Commission, and you saw there were motivated groups. And Boris Johnson, one of the statements that he made recently was that there was no place for racism, no place for anti-India hate in his country. So with these 18 MPs who have won, and how do you think that's going to sort of take forward the pro-positive India sentiment in the UK?
The South Asian diaspora in the UK is about 3 million. And that's roughly half Indian, and then the balance between Bangladesh and Pakistani origin. Yeah. So of the 1.5 million Indians, they are an incredibly important vote bank in terms of to support the political parties to win. Traditionally, actually, the majority have supported Labour, but perhaps because of the policies towards that were talked about in the conference, they've actually turned away from Labour and turned towards the Conservatives. So he's almost certainly benefited from an Indian vote. And his visit to the Swaminarayan Mandir in Neasden was obviously part of his attempt to show he is pro-India. Yeah. And then when you look at the makeup of the parliament, we've got 15 Indian origin MPs now, mostly from Gujarati, Punjabi, Goan origin. 7 of them are Conservatives. 3 of them are in the cabinet as it is, and on Monday we'll hear what positions they've got in the new cabinet. Yeah. But Priti Patel, obviously a close friend of India. We've got Rishi Sunak, who's the son-in-law of Narayan Murthy of Infosys, and we've got Alok Sharma, who's also been International Trade Secretary for Britain. So the Indians are right at the heart of the Conservative government. The Indian voters are right at the heart of the support that Boris has secured in order to win this victory. And Boris has made sure that in his manifesto and his comments that India is right at the heart of Britain leaving the European Union and re-entering the world in terms of direct bilateral relationships. Yeah.
Modi and the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of UK share a very good relationship. Vis-a-vis the ties between these two countries, how do you see that going forward now that Boris is back?
I think we'll certainly see it easier for Indian students to study in the UK. Yeah. I hope we're going to see it easier for Indian employees of companies to go and work in the UK as part of their projects, which is a key requirement for any free trade negotiation between the UK and India. And depending on how well the negotiations with the EU go, will be how strong or weak the British hand is when it sits down with the Indian government to negotiate a free trade deal with India. Yeah. But we certainly should be looking at a period where the UK-India relationship is far stronger as a result of Boris winning, and because of the Brexit, the fact that the UK-India trade relationship, investment and so on needs to become stronger to capitalise on the opportunity it provides.
Yeah. One issue that India is battling with the UK with is on Vijay Mallya. I know that there is close diplomatic coordination on what's happening with his case in the UK. Vijay Mallya is one. Nirav Modi is another. Especially with these two people who are on the run from India and in the UK in the pursuit to bring them back. How do you see the government in UK helping India?
I think it is pretty extraordinary seeing pictures of Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya wandering around the streets of London as they have done over the last couple of years. And there is no doubt that Boris and the Conservative government will put it on the table as an important issue that they must deal with if they're going to secure the strength of the relationship that they so badly want with India. So yes, it'll be a priority to resolve.
One of the things that we spoke of just before this interview was the kind of message that Modi and Donald Trump sent out from Houston at the Howdy Modi event, and you spoke about that. And it will be interesting to see whether, because I remember the Wembley happened, the Wembley address when the Prime Minister, I think it was 2015 if I'm not wrong, when David Cameron was there along with Prime Minister Modi, and you saw that big event. I don't know whether there will be one, there could be one, we don't know about that, but Do you think they're going to meet? And what's your take on the engagements between these two leaders going forward?
I don't have access to either Prime Minister's diary, but I hope that it is a priority of the coming Conservative Prime Minister to get on a plane to India as soon as possible. And it will be very interesting if, like his predecessor, Theresa May, he makes his first international visit to India.
Yeah.
In terms of that event in the Howdy Houston event, Howdy India, extraordinary. Whenever a Western leader wants to speak to an enormous crowd in their own country, the easiest way to do that is to invite Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the Indian diaspora will turn out in an audience that they've never spoken to before. So both President Trump's experienced that recently, and as you said, Prime Minister Cameron did. So I'm sure that if Prime Minister Modi comes to the UK, he will get a rapturous welcome, and Boris Johnson will be delighted to be by his side.
One last question. What in your assessment was the role of the Indian diaspora in this election specifically to bring Boris back?
I think we have to analyse the results by constituency to see.
But he did pay a lot of attention to the Indian diaspora.
Oh, he paid a huge attention to the Indian diaspora. You know, there's no doubt that whether it was the campaigning of his Indian origin members of parliament or himself, that he knew that he wanted to get the Indian vote and to get it out for the Conservatives. And in some of these key constituencies, I think we will find that it was the Indian vote which switched from Labour towards Conservative, and that tipped the balance. But his majority, 80, is big. I mean, it's as big a win as what Prime Minister Modi secured earlier this year. It's a huge majority, it's a huge vote of support from the British people, and it means that Brexit's going to happen. So what happens over the next 5 years will be momentous for the United Kingdom. Yeah,
and finally, if we talk about the rise of the right, do you think the ultra-left got it completely wrong once again?
The ultra-left, so the hard left, the ultra-left, essentially took control of the Labour Party in the last 5 years. So through Momentum, which was an organisation coming from that point of view, and through their election of Jeremy Corbyn as their leader, they definitely tacked to the left, which meant these anti-Semitic and the perception of these anti-India viewpoints coming to the fore. In order to win elections, you need to capture the middle ground. And the middle ground is the centre, whether you're centre-right or centre-left. The centre-left was vacated in this election, and that meant that Conservatives were able to capitalise on it. But in order for Labour to become a more effective opposition and have a chance of winning in 5 years' time, they're going to have to move back to more of a, dare I say it, a Blairite centre-left party than the hard-left stance that Corbyn and McDonnell have taken in this election and the one before.
Yeah, and you know, it's still interesting times because he may have won the election because this is exactly what he wanted, but what happens next in the next couple of months will have to be watched out for, especially in the wake of the Brexit deal, no deal, whatever happens. We'll be watching it very closely. Nick, thank you for speaking to Republic TV. We'll also debate this tonight with Arnab Goswami. Thank you for your time. Thank you. With the rise of the right and the nationalists, wave that is going across the world. We debate that at 10 o'clock with Arnab Goswami on The Debate. Thank you for watching on the biggest story tonight. Meanwhile, at 9 p.m, Rahul Gandhi's Rape in India comment. And the anger, outrage over it. There's no apology coming from him.